Well, we're here live with Ray Jones, who was here at Crowhurst Christian Healing Centre in the late 80s and early 90s with his wife Maureen, who isn't with us today. And they served here for about 10 years. And Maureen, I understand, was heavily involved in running of the house.
Yes, she was.
So, Ray, could you tell us a little bit about the healing courses that you ran while you were here?
Well, yes, I will. In a little word, we used to hold regularly, about twice or three times a year, a course for clergy and doctors, and it was a week-long course, and we discussed the whole business of healing and healing in its various methods of physical healing, wholeness, and healing of memories, and so on. I found, as you asked the question, I found that the main thing that had to be underlined and eked out was the question of faith. So many clergy who came at that time, I'm talking about nearly 30 years ago, were afraid, if you like, of exploring the ministry of healing. In case, in their words, nothing happened when you prayed. This was, if you like, the one worry that everybody seemed to have when they came, and it's down to the discussion on faith itself. And I found that not only with those who would like to exercise this ministry, but also when exercising it myself, the relatives of people who were sick or in need of healing, if they were too near the person, their lack of faith affected the person that we were thinking about or talking to or ministering to. And I can understand when Jesus, if you remember, went to somebody who was, I think in this case, dead, and everybody was laughing that he was going in to minister. And if you remember, Jesus put them all out of the room. So he got rid of those who were doubting and faithless. And it's that kind of thing. I remember when I was in the Navy, people said, you can't believe in why do you continue with this healing ministry? Because people don't get healed, perhaps. I said, well, I was called upon to preach, and I didn't see much response to that, but I was also called upon to lay hands on the sick and heal at Jesus' command. So I do it in faith and leave it all to him. And that was the kind of thing that was going on in those healing courses.
Wonderful, thank you. And in terms of sort of linking on to that, in terms of prayer, what's your experience been of answered prayer?
Well, immediately I'm reminded of an incident when I was in Malta as the chaplain of the hospital there and of the senior base. In our little hospital chapel, we had a service on a Wednesday evening, and people could come, and we taught and prayed and then laid hands on people for healing. And people came from far and near, and there was a case of a young woman who came for her holiday, and she heard about our place, and she came up on the Wednesday evening, and she really was so taken by the service and the whole atmosphere that when she went away, she came back to the island the following year and wanted to know more about Jesus, and she wanted to receive his gift of the Holy Spirit. So we prepared her, and she came one of the Wednesday nights, and just before we were going to pray for her, somebody put a hand up, and it was a woman that I'd never seen before, and she said, because I named this person that we were going to pray for, let's call her Elizabeth. I said, we're going to pray for Elizabeth that she may be filled with the Holy Spirit and so on. And just before we did it, a woman put her hand up and she said, 18 years ago, I was asked to pray for a baby, that she would become a Christian and so on. And I prayed every day of my life since then, the whole 18 years. And here am I on holiday. I'd never seen her. She was a name that was given to me by a friend. And the Lord has brought me here tonight to see the very person I've been praying for the last 18 years. And it's such a joy. Here we are in Malta, both of us, not belonging to Malta, but met together in answered prayer to see the very person that I've had in my heart for so long.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And then thinking about here and your time here, do you have a particularly fond memory?
Well, there are so many. I mean, it was a wonderful experience, and seeing Jesus ministering his healing touch to so many people. But one of the amazing ones was when a nun came up. A nun came up to kneel at the altar at our Thursday morning after communion, and my friend and I, my fellow worker, were laying hands on her, and she was leading and praying for her, and words came to me to say, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." So after she'd finished, I just said, "I think the Lord has told me to say, the joy of the Lord is your strength." And this nun's face, she lifted her head up, and she became radiant, and she said, "All this week I've been praying that the joy of the Lord would be my strength, and you have just given those very words." And she was radiant and joyful. Answered prayer or walking in trust, just loving the Lord.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for taking this time with us, Ray.
No, it's a pleasure.
Okay, that's done.